I didn't want to be one of those idiots who can't follow rules. I'm a Reddit no-sleep addict. Especially these days, with nothing else to fill my time, I spend endless hours scouring new and then the archives for stories that I haven't yet read. My favorite are rules stories. You probably know the kind. I'm a night shift guard at an abandoned mall, and someone left me a strange list of rules. The OP never takes the rules seriously at first. Inevitably, something creepy happens, and they panic and break one. I always thought that it would be so simple for me to follow the rules by just keeping a clear head. My chance to prove myself came unexpectedly. "Hey, you still looking for a job?" Tony, my roommate, asked me over dinner one night. "Uncle Mike is looking for an overnight warehouse manager." I hurried to chew and swallow a huge mouthful of spaghetti. "I don't have any management experience," I said. Tony waved his fork dismissively. "The title's just for show. All you'd be doing is keeping an eye on the warehouse, make sure no one breaks in and stuff. What's the pay?" $25 an hour. I choked on a piece of onion. As I took a gulp of water, massaging my throat, it occurred to me that Tony was doing me a favor. We'd gotten close over 2 years of living together, and he knew that I needed money in a bad way. "Where do I sign up?" I joked. The next day, an Uber dropped me off at 9 p.m. sharp at the warehouse address. The warehouse was an ugly concrete building nestled between a junkyard and a shuttered dentist's office. I knew it was a dentist's office because of the rotted wood sign over the door, which read, "Happy Teeth," next to a chipped picture of a cartoon emoji grinning widely with a full set of realistic human teeth. I pulled open the warehouse's thick metal door and stepped inside. I found myself in a huge, mostly empty room, illuminated by strips of flickering fluorescent lights. A few wooden crates were stacked haphazardly against the far wall next to another metal door. To my left was a small closet whose door was slightly ajar. To my right, a wooden desk with a chair behind it. On the desk lay a silvery key and a sheet of printer paper. My heart began to beat faster as I picked up the paper and read the following in large black print. "Rules. Lock the door behind you when you enter the building and again when you leave. Do not open the door for anyone. If they are meant to be here, they will have a key. Do not go into the back room, especially if you hear voices coming from it. Ignore any unusual smells. Never open the crates. If they leak, there is a mop in the janitor's closet. If you see a man in a blue and white striped suit, be polite to him, but do not look at his face. Do not call the police. They are not on your side. Do not talk to anyone who looks like a police officer. They are not on your side." Was this a prank? I tried to recall if I'd mentioned my obsession with rules stories to Tony before. After a moment, I decided that, prank or not, I'd do what I'd wished so many times the OPs of those stories would do. Keep a clear head, follow the rules. I took the key and locked the heavy metal door behind me. Then I peeked into the closet, discovering that the cramped space doubled as both a janitor's closet and a restroom, containing a urinal, sink, mop, and bucket. Finally, I sat down at the desk, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling Reddit. I was proud of myself for having avoided the obvious trap. If I had gone to scope out the back room, no doubt something would have enticed me to open the door. No, better to stay right here. Several hours of doom scrolling later, I was sitting in my chair half dozing when a rattling sound startled me awake. I checked my phone. 1 a.m. I heard the rattling again coming from the front door. Someone was trying the door handle. I held my breath, staring at the jiggling handle. It occurred to me that there were no windows in the entire warehouse. No one could see in, and I couldn't see out. After a few seconds, the door handle stilled. Boom! The entire door shook as if someone or something had struck it with tremendous force. My heart jackhammering in my throat, I stood up and slowly backed away. Boom, boom, boom. My back hit something cold. I was pressed against the back wall. As if a switch had flipped, everything fell still and quiet again. Under my hand, I felt the rugged metal of the door to the back room. Had the sole purpose of the assault by the entity outside been to drive me toward this room? In the sudden silence, I heard something through the wall. It was faint but high-pitched, nibbling just at the edges of my hearing, swelling in volume before dying away again, over and over in an irregular pattern. It sounded like a crying baby. I fled back to my desk, my mind whirring. Could there really be a child trapped back there? Should I call the cops? At that last thought, I snapped back to my senses. My eyes went to the printout on my desk. Do not call the police. I shook my head, smiling at the implausibility of the scenario. A baby in the back room of an industrial warehouse? I needed to keep my wits about me. Nothing else strange happened for the rest of the night. I used part of my first paycheck to buy a pair of noise-canceling headphones and showed up for my second shift with them already over my ears, the noise cancellation on max. I froze as I stepped through the warehouse door. The air smelled wrong. It was coppery, like an old penny, with an unpleasant undertone that reminded me of a sewer leak, a mix of filth and decay. Coughing, I turned and locked the door. As I turned back around, something caught my eye. The crates at the back of the warehouse were sitting in what looked like a pool of tar. Swallowing down a vague feeling of unease, I went to fetch the mop. The tar-colored substance, when I mopped it up, was gloopy like day-old gravy. The coppery smell floated around me so strong that it almost felt like a physical thing, a mist that saturated my nostrils, my clothes, my lungs with every shallow breath I drew. Something touched the back of my head and my headphones slid off. I spun around, sloshing dirty water everywhere. A man stood a few feet away with my headphones in his hand. He wore a gaudy suit with cream white and baby blue stripes. A gold bow tie sat crooked against a stiff white collar, and his face, I dropped my gaze to the floor, trying to forget my brief impression of his glittering eyes and pale lips. His voice was soft and thin. "Are you the new overnight manager?" he asked. Yes, sir," I forced out. "No headphones," he said. "Stay alert." I bobbed my head like a fool while staring intently at his shiny brown shoes. "Keep up the good work," he said. The shoes shifted and his clicking footsteps crossed the room, followed by the sound of the front door unlocking. Once I heard the door lock slide back into place, I dared to look up. The warehouse was empty. I quickly finished mopping up the mess by the crates. My headphones were sitting on my desk. I sank into my chair, staring at the round black pads that soaked up the dim light. Had the man come in from outside, or had he been in the back room? My imagination, running wild, conjured a vision of him standing unnaturally still in the dark, on the other side of the wall. Why had he been there? How long had he been waiting? What if he wasn't the only one? I couldn't calm down. I played on my phone, paced the floor, tried to nap, but no matter what I did, it felt like 1,000 glittering eyes were boring into my back. I needed to see what was in the back room. I read and reread the rules. Do not go into the back room, especially if you hear voices coming from it. I wouldn't go in, I reasoned. I'd listen for voices, then open the door and take a peek. Just a peek to make sure I was alone. I apprehensively approached the back door, noting how solid it looked, how thick the hinges were. I pressed my ear to the cool metal and closed my eyes. I was greeted by silence, broken only by my shaky breathing. Before I could lose my nerve, I yanked the door open. On the other side was a completely bare concrete room lit by a naked light bulb dangling from the ceiling. I stared and stared, embarrassment and relief alternately washing over me in waves. Boom. I whipped around. Boom. The front door shook with the force of an unseen impact. "Police!" a voice shouted from outside. Boom. My eyes dipped to the sheet of rules. "They are not on your side. Police, open up." Boom. The inked words swam in my vision. "Do not talk to anyone who looks like a police officer. They are not on your side." My vision exploded with golden stars. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed and being informed by a stern-faced policewoman that I was under arrest. I was too out of it at the time to follow much of what she said, but I pieced the facts together over the course of my ensuing trial. I had been unwittingly recruited by a criminal organization. The police had been after the big boss, the man in the blue and white suit, when they blew the door to the warehouse with me inside. One of the jury members threw up at the photos of what was found in those crates. No one believed my protestations of innocence. I couldn't explain why I had ignored the crying, mopped up the blood, why I couldn't describe the appearance of the man in the suit despite having been close enough to touch him. I got 40 years without parole. My life is over, but let me leave you with this warning, in case I might save yours. If you find a strange set of rules, don't follow them.